Coaches, welcome back. Episode 2 of FCA Coaches Corner, where we talk Jesus and coaching and the world of sports. My name is Todd. I'm joined today by Aaron and Keith. We all serve with Kansas FCA. We hope that this platform is a blessing to you wherever you're at in your coaching journey. Will help you maximize your impact. If you missed episode 1, please go back and take a look on our YouTube page. We had Coach Galeon here from Heston College. I think he will bless and encourage you by what he shared. And so please go back and take a look, share with your fellow coaches, subscribe to our channel. Make sure you're tuning in every Friday as we feature a different guest coach. Today, I'm excited. We're joined by Coach Jody Karsak from Derby High School. Coach, thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?
Doing great. Really excited to be here and just to share God's story, what we do down in here in Derby.
Awesome. Can you, just for our audience, can you just kind of catch us up on your coaching journey? What brought you to Derby, maybe your role there, and anything from your personal life that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I would say, I grew up in Olathe and I played for the great coach Steve Ingram there. We did not have FCA there. However, I was walking with the Lord as a high school teen, and I loved what coaching was all about. So I knew early on I wanted to coach. From right after college, I played basketball at Wichita State. Lane Lord, who was the coach at Wichita Heights, when I student taught there, he asked if I wanted to come join his staff. And so for 2 years, I was able to coach with him. He taught me a ton about the ropes and how it all worked at the high school level. So that was 1998 to 2000 is when I got my start. It's been a while. And then I kind of took a different direction, and God led me to really embrace being a wife and a mom. And from 2001 to 2011, I stayed at home. And one day, God was just challenging me. We had just moved to Derby from Rose Hill in 2010, I believe. And I think this was around 2011, just how can I impact Derby for him? And I thought, well, maybe I'll bake some cookies for my neighbors. Well, he had a little bit different something in mind, and he told me to go coach. So I applied for the job that was open, and in 2012, I was an assistant. I didn't get the head job, which was actually a blessing in disguise because I knew nothing about Derby really. And Coach Smith showed me the ropes. And then he took a job at Valley Center as a football coach. And so I just finished up my 7th year being a head coach at Derby High School. So that's been my coaching journey.
Wow, Jody, I didn't know that you were not, from my mind, I just kept thinking you were at Derby forever. So that's fantastic. So my question was your FCA tree. I'll call it your FCA tree.
Okay.
You were involved in high school. So my question was, were you involved in high school? Were you involved in college, Wichita State? And then did FCA, what was the influence that it played in your life about casting vision for ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I went to Olathe South High School, and they did not have an FCA. I did not hear about FCA until I stepped on foot the campus of Cloud County. And that was in 1994. And I cannot remember the guy's name for the life of me, but he was a tremendous huddle leader. He was the track coach there at Cloud County. And
he still is. He still does it.
Is he?
Yeah.
Ted Schmidt.
Okay. Yes. He just embraced all of us athletes. And I fell in love with FCA right away because, I think sometimes when you get out on your own and you're no longer under the roof of your home, you kind of make your faith your own. And with the help of Ted and FCA, I was able to do that there at Cloud County. And so just the passion that FCA has for sports and God. I mean, you mix the two, and that's right up my alley. So I loved FCA right away. And then I played basketball 1 year at Cloud County, and then had an opportunity to play at Wichita State. And Coach Jill Killen, we would talk frequently on the phone, and we would end up talking a lot about the Lord. And she said, if you decide to come to Wichita State, I would love for us to start an FCA chapter here. And that was actually one of my top 5 reasons why I chose to go to Wichita State over other schools, is because I was really excited about being a part of starting that ministry at Wichita State. So that was awesome. I, as a college student, I helped with the Kansas FCA conferences. I was a huddle leader. That was always fun. Just loving on those kids, trying to win the towel and that whole thing. And then I think, I can't remember what year it was, but probably one of my favorite awards I've ever won was the Female Athlete of the Year award back in the late 90s. So just early on in my young life, FCA has had a huge impact. And then once I did get to Derby High, Kelly Thorne, who's the rep here in our area, we had served together in a youth group at a church we both attended. We didn't have a huddle group, and we did at one time at Derby, but it had not been here for quite some time. And so she had just asked me to pray about starting one. And, I knew that God wanted me to do that. And I had some phenomenal kids on my team who loved Jesus. And I said, hey, would you want to do this with me? And we're into our 6th or 7th year now at Derby High. And we had our first Fields of Faith last fall that, we were able to do because of FCA. And we had several churches in our community just come alongside. They donated the means that I think we had like $2,000 a band. I mean, it was just awesome. And, we had about 350 kids show up, and they all came down onto the field for an altar call and just praying with so many and leading kids to Christ. And so, that's really why I'm so excited to be here to talk with you guys and to whoever's listening, because this Jesus thing in sports is so impactful. I mean, it's just amazing.
So did you get to start a huddle at Wichita State?
We did. I don't know if it was, we did. We called it FCA. I'm not sure if she went through all the right, I don't know if she went through the right ropes in order to say it was official or not, but we called it FCA. But we would have, can't remember what night it was. I remember it was 9:30 at night because that's when everybody was kind of done with their day. But
Wow.
for about an hour. We would meet in the girls' locker room.
And was it a decent sized group?
We would have anywhere between 30 and 50 kids. So I don't know once I left how it maintained or whatnot, but I know Jill, she also left fairly, when that leadership kind of leaves, it sometimes can suffer that way.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
Coach, you talked about, how you started the FCA there at Wichita State, but then also when you did it at Derby. One of the hot topics or hot words, whatever you want to say, with coaches is the culture that they create. And we had mentioned before that one of your assistants is one that I knew from Kansas Wesleyan, Bree. And so I know that she would want to go to a place where it's, as you said, with Wichita State and a cloud that you wanted to go where there's Christ-centered or there was a presence of Christ. And so how have you developed that culture on your team at Derby High School, throughout the FCA? And, you said with Fields of Faith, how has that impacted the school through the ministry of FCA?
I think what FCA does is it gives us a safe place, because a lot of being in the public school, there's a lot of talk about you can't do this and you can do this. And, people start splitting hairs, and, FCA just makes it safe. It allows us to equip. It allows us to build those relationships and to empower these kids for Jesus. And, just to have that on our campus, it's been amazing. You talk about, I call her Coach Bosley, I call her Boz. You know, even for her, how I met her is I sent out a district-wide email and I said, hey, I don't care what you teach or what school you're in, please come and support our FCA. These kids would love to have teachers and staff and anybody here. And she, read the email, and that's how we met. And I had a position open, and I said, hey, you ever thought about coaching? And so that's kind of how we met, was actually through FCA. But in terms of culture, one of the big things that companies or sports teams do a lot of times right now is we try to brand ourselves, and those kinds of things. And so I guess I fell into that trap a little bit, but for good reason. And we really stuck with the word uncommon. In Deuteronomy 14:2, I'm going to read that. It says, you have been set apart as holy to the Lord your God, and he has chosen you from all the nations of the earth to be his own special treasure. And I know he was talking to the Jews at that time and his people, but we are, as Gentiles, even called to be set apart. And that's why we use the word uncommon, is because we want to be different. And so everything that we drive in our quote unquote uncommon culture, I believe that winning is driven by character. And so who's the greatest man to follow when it comes to character? And we all would say Jesus, absolutely. And so that's really how I go about thinking about my culture, is everything that I do, I filter through the lens of Christ. I'm from the very beginning in the fall, I take our seniors through a leadership summit. And I believe that all of our kids have an opportunity to lead, whether it's good or bad. But our seniors are so pivotal because they've experienced me for 3 years. They know my terminology. They know what I'm talking about. They know how important the character is in our program, that whole we over me kind of mentality. And so I take them through a leadership summit, very servant leadership oriented. At the end of our time together in the fall, I give them the book, The Giving Tree, because it's by Silverstein. I don't know if you guys have read it or not, but it's just about you give, and we make everybody around us better. And so that's so I start to do that right away. Another thing we do specifically in our culture and in our program, I have 3 days of two-a-days tryouts, and it is a lot of work for us coaches, but it's so worth it, because right off the bat, we are
Apologize for that technical difficulty. Something got cut out. But Coach, you were talking about your two-a-days that you start in the beginning of the season.
right. So right away, we want to drive home the character side of things. And again, that's what we believe, what drives winning is our character. And so we do 3 days of two-a-days, so that we do something really hard together, and we have to lean on one another. And it's just a really cool thing to watch these girls, walk down the stairs at school just super sore. They hate it, but they love it. And they're just doing hard things together. So after that, on the Saturday after that first Saturday after tryouts, we do a sisterhood retreat, and it is faith-based, and I have them sign something that says that it's going to be faith-based. I'm blessed to have a pastor who I've connected with, that God's brought to our program, that was a former basketball coach. He's close to 80 years old, but he's awesome. And we call him our character coach, and he comes to all of our games, and he's a part of everything. But specifically on that Saturday night, we split the girls into groups of 5 or 6. Each of us coaches, we take something that we want to share from our hearts. So that whole night is all about reaching the heart behind the jersey, and just building those relationships. Coaches are able to get vulnerable and be real and genuine with the players, and just right off the bat, we're just really about each other and developing that trust and all those things that we need to have a successful season. And then our character coach kind of ends it all with a word from scripture, just encouraging them in their faith and those kinds of things. And that night is usually based on whatever the seniors, I let them decide the theme for the year. And last year it was work hard, work hard, stay humble, stay hungry. So that was the theme of our retreat. So those are just some, things right off the bat we start to do to build that culture. And to bring it back to the FCA piece of it, again, I'm not doing anything. It is everything we're doing is Jesus in mind, but it's not against the law, I guess. And I guess that's part of what I'm hoping to encourage other coaches today is we don't have to split hairs. We know what we're trying to do, and we're trying to love these kids like with this crazy love that Jesus loves us with, and it just happens.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And you are building a culture of winning. I mean, following Jesus definitely doesn't mean worldly success, right? Sometimes it means trials, right? Our success is measured by our faithfulness, not by any wins and losses, anything like that. But as we were talking a couple of days ago, you guys have finished the top 3 in state the last few years, right? And then kind of got cut off in the tournament this year due to the coronavirus. So you really are building a culture of winning. So that's so awesome. I know when I was coaching before I took this job, one of the things we always talked about is how to get parents to buy in. I think this generation is a little bit different where I think in the past, parents would trust coaches. Now it's kind of sometimes every man for himself, or every woman for themselves. So what are some things that you do to get some of your parent buy-in there at Derby, and to kind of maybe include some of them in the program that you're creating there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's a question that a lot of us coaches discuss at this time. It is different. Back in, when I played, we would run through a wall for a coach just because he said so, because he was the coach. And it is a little bit different. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just different in the way that it is. And so as coaches, I think, first of all, we just pray. I mean, that's the first thing I would say. I pray about everything, and to understand that I'm a parent. I have a senior. He's gone through athletics here at Derby, and our focus is on our kid, and so I get that piece of it. So in order to get them to buy in, I think after I'm praying, I think communication is key. You have to communicate. You have to, right up front from our first meeting with the parents and the players, I set the ground rules. I'm very honest with them, about the expectations, and I tell the parents, it doesn't matter how much talent we have, but if our parents don't learn to buy into the same kind of uncommon culture that our kids are trying to buy into, which they do, they love being a part of something bigger than themselves and sharing success with one another. I mean, they just love it. But then if you have parents who are wanting their kid to be it, I guess, I think is probably where a lot of the buy-in doesn't happen. Is just communicating and going back to say, we need you to buy into the we over me just as much as the kids, and about what we're about. And I think you have to really define what you mean by success, right? So yeah, absolutely. It's so fun to win, right? We're competitors. That's probably half of why we love athletics, is the competitive side of it. and we're the chess match and all of those things that go into playing the game. But truly, how do you define success? And so I tell my parents, success to me is, does your daughter walk out her last day being a part of our program better than what she walked in? Then I have defined success. And regardless if I've won 0 games or if we won a state title, I'm still feeling successful whether or not whatever our record is. It's hard to get parents, especially early on, to buy into that. And I would say this, the culture that we have here isn't for everybody. You know, I've had some families that have left, you know, because we are very team oriented. We're very about we, and that's okay. And so, you know, and sometimes this type of program hasn't been for everybody, and that's okay. But I'm just going to continue to love these kids like crazy, and to drive home the character of Christ, because I know that that is what's going to make these kids a winner. Again, regardless of our record. The other thing that I believe that you have to, as a coach, is to grow that thick skin. And just like as parents, we can't take it personal when our kids don't do what we want them to do. It's not a reflection on us necessarily, because they're learning and growing. Where their hearts are being molded and changed by so many things. As our players, the same. You know, we can't take personal when you know, maybe we feel hurt by something. But I think that's huge with parents. I think sometimes coaches, we take it too personal from our parents. And what the Lord has really taught me, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, is that, you know, Coach Karsak, you're also trying to reach the hearts of their parents. You know, God's also using you to reach their families. And so, you know, by the time these parents who come in and they're seniors, and they have learned kind of what we're all about and this uncommon that we talk about, now they're fighting for the uncommon, and they're saying thank you and all of this kind of stuff, because what ends up happening is that the success that they wanted for their kids usually is a result of them buying into the character that we believe drives winning. So those, I think too, just knowing that your parents are also learning and growing, and you know, just communicate with them. But that is something that's difficult. I know that it's driven some really great coaches away from the profession.
You know, Coach, we're going to kind of finish up here with you had talked about one of the things, you know, you were at Olathe and you talked about your coach there, and then going to Cloud, and both Ted and Kathy Schmitz are continuing with the huddle. I kind of work with them a little bit, and so it's been a lasting legacy for them. And so legacy is what we'd like to ask you about. What, and you've alluded to it a little bit, but what would be the legacy you want to leave at Derby High School, whether it be with the women's program, basketball program, whether it be the high school in general, the FCA huddle? What's the legacy, whether it be one word or one phrase or whatever? What do you want people to see Coach Karsak's legacy to be?
I think ultimately it is when people have been around our program, around our FCA huddle, around my family, whatever it may be, if I'm involved with it, that they have had a little taste of Jesus. And I think you know, I just want the Lord to be proud of how I love others, because man, I am such a sinner, y'all. Right? Like Paul, I'm the worst of these, and God chooses to love me, and I want others to have that. And you know, it's the moments where you know, I'm going to show this real quick, because I had a senior this year that gave me this for my birthday, and it says fearfully and wonderfully made, and on the inside of it, it says love you big time, and she put a date on it. And she gave this to me. The date was January 13th, 2020. And my birthday's in February, and she had that made. On that day, she came to my house, and we knelt right on the ottoman in front of my couch, and I got to lead her to Christ. You know, those are the moments. Those are the legacy moments, you know. And, you know, Kennedy Brown was a So the legacy moment with Kennedy Brown was one of our last FCAs. Her and I are standing next to each other, and we always do worship music at the end of our time together, and we were singing Reckless Love. And her and I were just in tears, just overwhelmed by the love of Christ, and just knowing the last 4 years of everything that we had been together, the good, the bad, and ugly, that the main thing was the main thing, and that was Christ. And, you know, those are the legacy moments, just winning these kids' hearts for the Lord. You know, and it's all worth it, even if it's just one kid. And I'm just fortunate, you know. God is so good. When you're walking with him, there's so many opportunities, and I hope that's really the message I want for other Christian coaches to get is it works. Like Jesus in sports and the public school or wherever you're at, it really works if you let it work.
That's so awesome, Coach. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Do you guys have anything else before we close out?
Oh, not me. Fantastic. Good stuff.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it. This was great.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Thanks for all you do. This is awesome. I love coaches supporting coaches, and especially when it has to do with Jesus. Hopefully this will help us to be able to do that more, just this platform. So Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, loved hearing your heart. Thanks so much. Please, if you're watching this episode, please share it with your fellow coaches. And I hope you were again challenged and encouraged by Coach Karsak. And we'll see you again next Friday. Thanks for joining us.